Welcome to another episode of the Writer's Game podcast where we help you magnify your voice and monetize your message. Today, we have somebody on here that's going to tell you a story about how storytelling saved his life. And through his ability to craft messages and create captivating stories and outlines, he is not just transforming his own life, he's transforming the lives of so many others. Chad is the owner of M4 Consulting, the VP of Change Management. That's a new title that I'm excited to explore today as well. But he is somebody that is a father, a truly a man of faith, and somebody that just his presence alone is so powerful, so prophetic, and is helping others reach their purpose. Chad, how you doing today, brother?
I'm good, man. Thank you, man. You're far too kind. Far
Oh
too kind.
man, you know me, brother. You know me. So, before we get started, you wear so many hats. You're a storyteller, you're a father, you're a VP now. You're still a business owner, you're a community activist. All of these different things that you do. Of all of these things, which one defines you the most?
Whew. That's a tough question. Because it's easy to say all of them, or it's easy to say a father. And while fatherhood is a huge part of my life,
Mm,
my prince and my princess are huge parts of my life. They are but the inspiration for everything else I do.
that's good.
So to be defined by like one term is kind of hard for me. But what I would say, man of faith, as you mentioned earlier, would be the term that defines me most. Because fatherhood is an exercise in failure that is wrapped in faith. So it's one of those things. So
When you think about your journey in becoming a father and how you've probably been tested in your faith so many different times, what's a story as you've developed into the father that you are today that has really transformed your ideologies about life in general?
well, my son, just experiencing fathering my son. My son is special needs. He's on the autism spectrum, and he is nonverbal. So it's one of those things where you kind of have to actually learn him to understand what he's experiencing.
Mhm.
And so that has created a just groundswell of patience within me, but also it allowed me to use other skills that I developed in other places in my life.
Mhm.
Um, I was in the military. I was in the army. Went to Iraq and Afghanistan, and over there, you learn that complacency can kill you,
Wow.
and attention to detail can save your life.
Mhm.
And these were skills that I actually learned. The way to not become complacent and the way to pay attention to detail were skills that I learned in a long, long time ago at a different time of my life, right?
Yeah.
And so it's one of those things, though. You think about the fact that I was prepared to father a nonverbal child by learning other people's nonverbal cues. And
Mm.
so I see certain things in my son, and it's funny because his mom is like, "How do you know this?" I'm like, "Look, you're in mental health, you know psychology. I know people, and it's two different things."
Yeah.
And so just kind of learning how my son operates and functions is kind of where that is. And my faith is often tested because I'm a non-custodial parent, and it's one of those things like I can't always be there. Like when he's sick, I can't always be there when he's upset and feeling bad. And so when he is around me, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, I am coming in the middle of a stream that's running really fast, and I just have to, you know, ask God for guidance here, but I also have to use the tools He gave me to observe and say, okay, this is what's wrong with Caden. Boom, and I immediately know what's going on. So yeah, that's how the
That's
faith
so
is prepared.
powerful, though. That's so powerful because a lot of the different things that we learn about life, we transfer over to how we parent, and vice versa. A lot of the things that we learn as a parent, we transfer over into really how we navigate life as well. With all of the different things that you've experienced, whether it's you in the military, you as a parent, you as a business owner, what is an experience that has shaped you the most into the person that you've become today?
You probably knew this was coming. I would say that so I'm telling y'all way too much of my business today, but like you said, I'm a storyteller. Meeting my biological parents for the first time 3 years ago, a little less than 3 years ago. Um, Before that, and you know this, you've known me quite a while. There was always this brooding, intense anger just beneath the surface that I couldn't necessarily, people didn't always see because I'm always smiling, I'm always friendly, I'm a pretty jovial guy. But there was always a natural mistrust of people, but also a kind of brooding intensity that would um, could be described as anger. I was never outwardly angry to other people. I was never a violent individual. Nobody that you know would ever describe me as just a wantonly violent person. But there was like a brokenness there that was pretty apparent once you got to know me. But it's so strange. It's amazing to think about. Like the first time I hugged both of my parents was in a parking lot of a Jamaican restaurant in Hoover, Alabama.
Wow.
And it's such a random place, but there was nowhere else in the world that this could have taken place but in Alabama, right?
Yeah.
And hugging them, it's almost like it's an undescribable feeling of just immediately feeling whole,
Oh,
right? It's like I became Wolverine. Like if you ever paid attention to X-Men or comic books, you know Wolverine gets shot, stabbed, beat up, punched in the face, and his body just heals immediately. That immediate sense of healing is what I felt. And ever since that day in 2020, like during quarantine at that, well, the end kind of tail end of when people were actually taking it seriously. Um, ever since that day, like my life actually completely changed. And yeah, I'm a way different person now, and it's way better. And I would have to say that that watershed moment, that is like literally the biggest watershed moment of my life, right there, meeting those amazing people.
there's so many people in life right now that have had different watershedding moments in their lives and different moments that have um, transformed the next steps. When you think about this moment that you were able to create with your biological parents, what were the next steps in your life that you had to take to create this new reality?
Um, so the beauty of that, my biological, it's funny. So, and this is gonna make so much sense. Like once I say it. So my parents, my father didn't know I existed actually,
Mm,
and so I was born. I lived my whole life, and he didn't know I was here. The family didn't know I was here until I kind of just showed up, blew everything up. And my parents broke up. My father had went off and gotten married. My mother had gone off, gotten married. My father got divorced. My mother got divorced, and they found their way back to each other.
wow,
Just like I found my way back to my mom first, and then found my way, and then we found our way to my father ultimately. And after that, talking to my counselor, my therapist, my spiritual advisor as well, um, I realized that if you could track literally certain parts of my life by, ironically enough, 7-year cycles, right? And I would begin a thing and I would go through all of these things and I would try to start over.
mm,
And I would never actually complete the things that I said I was going to complete. Don't get me wrong, I accomplished like a lot. I accomplished quite a bit in these cycles, but there were certain foundational things about me that I just would refuse to complete for some reason, for one reason or another. And so what I did was it was painfully obvious at this point because 2020 was when I met my folks. Almost 7 years to the day was when I had moved to Charlotte
mm,
that I met them. And so I feel like for the next 7 years, I'll be finishing all the things that I started in
wow.
Charlotte. And I've made a deliberate and conscious effort to go back and complete certain things that I was supposed to complete. Now, some of those things I found in the process, I had no business starting anyway. And so the completion was me saying, yeah, I'm good. Let me walk away. My presence is neither celebrated nor tolerated here. I
Yeah.
got nothing for it. And so I've been going through and completing those things that I started then and that I tried to restart, kickstart. And so now everything in my life ultimately is about finishing those things I started and then starting new journeys that I am absolutely 1000% determined to finish. And so, yeah, that was the
When
next
you
step.
think about new journeys that you're determined to finish, which journey are you on right now that you are most determined to complete and finish?
Well, once I get this next round of edits, the book,
There
that's number one.
it
Uh,
is.
I'm on my fourth round of edits, and I'm just like, God, when is this process ever going to be over, right? But but no, it's because I really like the tone has to be right, the words have to be right, and I really appreciate my editor. Shout out to Todd. Thank you so much. But no, that's the number one focus right now, the number one journey that I'm gonna complete. I'm determined to complete. And the second journey is one that I'm in the research phase of. Is screenwriting, and I think I told you about this on my birthday.
Yeah,
I want to get into screenwriting because the stories. They yeah, they they storying out here. So
definitely. You know, you've always been somebody that has had a gift of being able to um, allow people to see pictures and visuals through the words that you're able to use. When did you realize that you had this gift, and when did you really realize that the gift could really be able to transform people's lives?
so I've always loved writing. I've always loved writing. I've always done spoken word. I've always been involved in some sort of journalism. Well, not always, but throughout most of my childhood into my young adulthood, I was always involved in both poetry and journalism in some way. And the moment I realized that, I was taking a class on feature writing from a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist. His name is Rick Bragg. I mean, he's absolutely amazing writer. And we're sitting in class one day, and he says, "Well, by virtue of the fact," and I have to use his voice when I say this, by virtue of the fact that you're Southern, you're a better storyteller than 90% of the whole world, because what we do in the South is that we tell stories." And so I sat there and thought about it, and I was like, yeah, like when you get with your family down here, I'm from Alabama. When you get with your family down here, and even here in North Carolina, where I am at now, like we tell these stories, and these stories are just fascinating stories about people who are larger than life at all times. But he asked me to go, he asked the class to give an assignment. He gave an assignment that we were to go out and just interview somebody. And we had to write a feature story on them. And I met this homeless guy while walking outside of a friend's loft apartment. And he asked me for something. I don't know if he asked me for a cigarette or something, and I wasn't smoking. And I said, "Well, I'll give you $10. You just talk to me."
Really?
Yeah, and I gave him $10, and he sat there and talked to me for like 45 minutes. And so at the end of us talking, I said, "Well, man, it's plenty of resources out here." And he said, they ain't for me. I ain't know, I'm not gonna be doing X, Y, Z. Like he gives me all this stuff that he's not gonna do. And I've ended the article with he knows he's not gonna be taken in by some family and get the kind grandfatherly role. He's knows some university's not gonna use him as some, you know, bleeding heart project. He knows this. He says, I'd be lucky if I, end up in a nice warm place to end my life at. That's basically what he said. And there was a piece where he talked, it was a portion of it where he talked about his wife that he lost to his addiction. He had addiction to heroin. And he said that damn Shirley was the best woman. She had a good loving way about her. And I remember that line from the article that I wrote. And Rick Bragg literally stood up in the class and read a paragraph from that piece. And you may be able to find it out there. It's called "Beneath Birmingham: The Underbelly of Poverty." No, it's
Wow.
called "Beneath Poverty: The Underbelly of Birmingham." And it's somewhere out on an old blog that I had. And he read out this paragraph, and he looked at me in the middle of class and said, "Son, that's just damn good writing." He said it just like that. And that was like for a Pulitzer Prize winning author and journalist to literally tell you in front of everybody that you did some damn good writing. I was like, well, maybe I can do this. And from there, I started, short stories, various pieces, telling my story here and there. And yeah, kind of went from there.
What is one of the pieces that you have written that took you to a place that you didn't think that you could go to?
It's actually one that's still in progress. I have a short story series that if you go on Facebook, you can probably find it. I wrote it for this was this online biker magazine, right? It was called Sucker. It's called Sucker Free MC,
Okay.
Sucka, SUCKA. And it talks about all things motorcycle history, motorcycle protocol, and basically motorcycle clubs specifically. And as a motorcyclist and motorcycle club guy, I wrote a story series loosely based on my experience when I first stepped into the motorcycle club world. And it forced me to literally take a very hard and very sober look at both myself and some of the people I'd surrounded myself with.
That's deep.
And to write characters and to develop a full complex human being in writing form in a very short amount of space, it was difficult for me, but uh, it forces you to really just evaluate that person for who they are. They're
Mm.
good, they're bad, and they're ugly. But it forces you to look at yourself in a way and see your good, all of your bad, and all of your ugly. Because when you're a good person around bad people, you realize that sometimes those bad people are good too, and you have to see the totality of them. And that series, Idols Become Rivals, is the name of the series. Um, it's really forced me, and I'm still working on it. It's really forced me to look at the good and the bad of people I actually care about, and can literally tell them to their face, "Hey, you're a pretty bad person, but there's good in you." And they can say the same about me sometimes. It just depends. It forces you to look at yourself in a 360-degree lens.
That's a very interesting perspective. I kind of want to explore that a little bit more, kind of seeing the good and bad people and then recognizing the bad and good people as well. And I think society teaches us to distance ourselves from bad people, and we always get this concept of, oh, you're a measure of the five people next to you, and you got to get in good rooms with good people and good mindsets and all of these different things. And why I don't like when we communicate that, and that's something that I've communicated for years as well, and you've really shifted my perspective here, is because there's bad in everybody and there's good in everybody as well. But you have to understand and be aware of how maybe their bad can influence and affect you, as well as what good or bad in you needs to be worked out so that we can be able to nurture relationships in our lives that can honor where we're going and who we are right now. Can you kind of break down a little bit about your perspective in regards to when you recognize that there is somebody in your circle that maybe there's a lot of characteristics of them that aren't the best, and I don't look at it as good as bad, I look at it as unhealthy and healthy, that they look at, you have characteristics that are unhealthy. What do you do? There's somebody on here listening right now, like, what do you do?
So I've been described by a fellow writer and amazing guy who I kind of look up to as a good person that sometimes does bad things for good reasons. Um, and I kind of agree with him in a lot of ways.
That is
And I,
perspective.
I have people in my life who have vices, who have broken spaces. Um, on the whole, I have two sides of friends, right? I have my friends who are, college educated, who have their own vices and things of that nature. But then I got my side of friends who, some of them have done time, some of them still may be in the streets, this, that, and the third. And they overlap at times, everybody kind of knows everybody in a certain way, right? And so if there have been people in my life though who have been just objectively toxic for me.
Mm.
And as somebody who tries to see the good in people and tries to bring out the good in people, it's been hard for me to just completely give up on people, which is probably a toxic trait of my own, right? Um,
Yeah.
but it's one of those things where it's like when you start looking at them and start weighing who they are on your own scale, um, you weigh the hurt versus the happiness. And one thing about me, I think about the Bible, it says, the kiss of an enemy is deceitful, but the wounds of a friend are ever faithful. My friends may hurt my feelings, but I know why they do it. We may get into it, and I've had some knockdown, drag out fist fights with some of my friends. Afterwards, we've gotten up and be like, "Hey, you want a drink? Come on." Because I know that we both just we know that we want each other to be better. When
Mm,
there's somebody that's in your life that is doing things to gaslight you, trigger you, and just objectively harm you for their own benefit, and sometimes it's hard to see, that person has to get cut off completely. Back in the day when I studied the nation of gods and earths, the concept of build and destroy, it says, in life you either build or destroy. And one of my morning mantras is, in life you either build or destroy, and I will allow no destructive forces within my sphere of influence. And so there are people in your life that you're like, well, this person's not really adding to me, but they're not actively destroying me either. They're destroying you, because if you put $100 in the bank account and you take $1 out every day, after 100 days, you'll be empty.
that's
On
good.
day 101, you're in the negative. And so if this person is not pouring back into you, they're literally draining you. They're taking your time, effort, energy, resources, and love, and taking from you and never give anything back. And there are people in your life like that, and you don't know that they're a foe. But hopefully, just looking at it like that, you'll see. Now, that's not to say that everything is reciprocal, right? Because there are people who you just have more than. You have more love than them, you have more resources than them, and you give them things, and you know it's for their benefit, and you know that they could never, like, if I give a friend $100 and I know that they could never give me back more than 20 at a time, that's a blessing to them, and I get blessed by seeing that, and I know they're trying their hardest
That's
to give
good.
to me, and I appreciate that effort. But if it's somebody I'm always giving to and I'm always pouring into, and they're always taking and like, appreciate you, bro, and then it disappear, that's a foe. That's not a friend.
Talk to me a little bit. Let's dive a little deeper in that. I think a lot of times, and one thing that I wrote down on my end is, in life, you either build or destroy. And I love the concept that you gave about, if you put $100 in the bank and every day you just took out $1, and you referenced the dollar in regards to the experiences that you share with people in regards to time, resources, anything. Um, Eventually you would go bankrupt. Eventually you'd be at zero. And then if they keep pulling, then you've overdrawn your account.
Yeah.
What are things that you recommend that people can do, or that you would require people to do, to add to the bank balance?
Ooh, that's a good one. Um, Ultimately, it takes nothing to show you care.
Hmm,
It's absolutely free. It costs you literally 15 seconds to send me a text message. Hey, just checking in. Are you okay?
that's good.
How much does it tax your soul to listen? How much does it tax your soul to just be present? Things like that. I've got a friend right now who is going through hell. Like, he's a genuine friend and a brother. He's going through hell right now. And he still finds the time and energy to say, hey, man, just checking in. Is everything good? Are you okay?
That's
How's the family? Stuff like that.
that's good.
People that can still think about you and care about you, it doesn't matter. I will go to the wall for this guy, because even in the midst of hell, he still cares. And even when I'm going through stuff, I still reach out. Hey, are you good? Those people who take the time to show you they care, and it really only takes 15 seconds. 15 seconds to send a text. Hey, thinking about you. Are you good? Stuff like that. Those are the ways that they can pour into me. And we often say that our love language, I've read actually, that our love language is what we didn't receive as a child, right?
Hmm,
And those words of affirmation are big to me. And so I'm always affirming people and giving them love, and I like to receive that back. It's not about gifts, it's not about materials, it's not about money, anything like that. But it's really about just support, being there, being present, and just showing up. Just showing up. That's all it takes. It just show up. That's how you pour into your people for me.
that's good, bro. It's so often, because we say it like, oh, they're not pouring into me, but then you can't define what are the things that you actually need to be poured into. It's not, I don't need more of your money. I don't need more opportunity. I don't need resources. I just need, consideration. I just need somebody to maybe listen. I just need somebody to do these things. And I think if we find ourselves in spaces where we can be more intentional and compassionate and considerate on maybe what other people are going through, then that will then help us create a tribe of people that when we're going through something, they can kind of come to our rescue as well.
Absolutely.
Um, Chad, you are uh, a man of a lot of different things that you have going on. Um, when you think about all of the different things that you have, how do you balance, you're an executive at your company, you're owner of a company, you're a parent, you're doing all of these different things. How do you balance, still find time to be productive as well as still find time to, have time for yourself as well?
Um, I've learned that lists really help me be
Mhm.
productive. I was talking to a friend yesterday, and she had said, "How do you track your productivity?" Every morning, I have a small notebook that I keep by my bed, and one of the first things I do, I pray, and then I write down everything I want to accomplish that day. And some are macro goals, some are micro goals, And so, but I need to work towards each one of them. Um, and I'm really big on unplugging. Like, granted, my phone is always nearby because you never know when you're gonna have to have an emergency of some sort. But I have two phones. One phone is for the people that need to get in contact with me at all time. My parents, my siblings, my children. They can contact me at all times. That phone never goes off. That phone never goes on sleep mode. That phone, is by my head when I sleep. The other phone, if you catch me on that number after 10:30, either we in a serious relationship and dating or something like that, or you just got me on a good Friday or Saturday night, and hey, you just caught me at the right time.
Steve.
But I believe in shutting down at a certain time. I believe in not responding to things until a certain time of morning. Like, I don't respond to text messages until 8:30.
Wow.
I don't respond to text messages after unless we have an understanding. I don't respond to anything after 10:30.
Mm.
Like, in the words of Red from Five Heartbeats, my office hours, you know,
5 o'clock till 5 o'clock,
yeah,
Monday
exactly.
through Friday.
That's my office hours. And
Yes.
and 90% of your interactions can literally be had and compartmentalized there. If it's an emergency, I have it set up to where when my phone goes on sleep mode, if it's an emergency, if you call back to back within a certain time frame, it'll get through. So, I'm always there for my people during an emergency. But they know, like, when it says this phone is set to do not disturb, Chad probably in the bed, or Chad is doing something constructive.
That's perspective, bro. I think having to set boundaries around your life to honor what you need in your life are super important because I think a lot of times we get caught up on this false sense of having to be everything for everyone. And when we're trying to do that, we end up being nothing for the one that matters the most. And that's the one that we see in the mirror. Um, I was on a podcast earlier this week and I asked the brother, I was like, if you were to audit the last 2 weeks of your life, what would it say about what you actually care about? And I think a lot of times we show up as, oh, I'm this amazing parent and business owner and all of these different things, but you wanted to sleep and watch Netflix more than you wanted to actually commit to your children or build that business. So I think that this allows you to set boundaries so that you can have more time to be able to create the things that you want. So we're going to do a little rapid fire exercise really quickly. I feel led to do this with you. This is going to be interesting. I'm going to say 3 words and I want you to create a story out of it.
Okay.
Just a quick beginning, a middle, and an end. This is going to be interesting.
Okay.
So let's start. The 3 words are laptop, crossover, and educated. Laptop, crossover, and educated. So this will be definitely interesting. And we're going to go in 3, 2, 1.
Question before we start, though.
Oh,
Wait. Before we start, do I need to do this in book form, or do I just tell a story by myself, or do I just?
it's completely up to you.
Okay, got it. Let's go.
Let's
So,
do it.
laptop, crossover, and educated. All right. So I've got a buddy, right? His name is Antoine, and Antoine, this guy, you don't really know what kind of box to put him in. So I crashed at Antoine's crib one night because, let's just say, we had way too much fun on a Thursday night when we shouldn't have, and I was off that Friday. And I wake up and I go into the kitchen, and Antoine is sitting at the counter and he has his laptop open and he's watching old and one videos. And I'm like, what are you doing watching old and one videos, dude? He was like, oh, I gotta go to the gym later. I'm like, go to the gym. Now this guy is like 6'3", so he might play basketball. Okay, maybe. But he's also like really seems like the not the most athletic person in the world. And I was like, well, I need to get a workout in too. I'll meet you at the gym later, right? And so I run to the house. I go change. I'm thinking we're gonna go lift weights or something like that. He was just watching and one to get himself hyped up to go. No, we go to this LA Fitness, and this guy's on the basketball court. And I'm like, okay, wait, huh? Like, what are you doing on the basketball court? Like, you're the guy that wears like boat shoots to the gym. Like, why are you out here on the basketball court? Well, Antoine is out there, and I'm telling you, he is serving these guys. Like, he is absolutely hitting everybody. He hit this one guy with a crossover, made him fall. Like, it was absolutely ridiculous. Like, he literally take this guy to his shoes. And so we were sitting there, and I watched like 3 games back to back, and he did not get off the court. Like, he had a jumper like Steph Curry. It was ridiculous. And then afterwards, he comes over to me, and he's like, now you want to go work out? I just watched you demolish like 3 sets of guys in basketball. No, I don't want to work out. I feel like I'm not doing enough, right? And so he goes and works out with me anyway. And so I finally just asked him, I said, dude, you're one of the most educated people I know. Like, you have all these degrees. You seem really awkward when we're out. You don't really, how did I not know that you know how to play ball like this? And he looks at me and says, it's a lot you don't know. And that's for a reason. I keep some things to myself because if everybody knows everything about you, then who are you really? You're a caricature.
Bro, that is kudos, man. That's great. Anybody watching this right now, please hire this man at your next conference, at your next book reading, at your next something. I need a publishing company to hire this man because that was off the dome with literally 10 seconds of preparation. I would have literally thought this was a real story. That is hilarious. Yeah, we gotta do this more often. That's the newest rendition or addition of something that I'm gonna start doing on our podcast every single week with a new guest, is just having them. I feel like storytellers have to tell stories.
Absolutely.
And it's not just the stories that are from your own experience. You got to use your imagination and be able to create things. I read something and it was powerful, and it was pretty much just saying, and I'm gonna not say it word for word, but our imagination is the thing that creates innovation and solves problems, as well as connects with the souls of people. The problem is that when we stop being children, we stop imagining. And when we stop being children and we stop imagining, we stop innovating and we stop solving the problems. And when we stop solving problems, then that leaves room to create problems in our own lives. So we have to stay young. We have to tell stories, and we have to use our imagination. And Shad, you do it better than almost everybody I know, brother. And I'm so excited. I'm so excited for your book. I'm so excited for your first movie that you're gonna write.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna watch it in the movie theater at least 20 times. I'm speaking that into existence. If you had 60 seconds to share a message that would touch the ears and the souls of every single person in the world, what would you say?
I would say that there are 3 things that will allow you to live your best life. The first one is perseverance. Like, never give up. Like, even when it's tough, don't give up. I had a football coach tell me, always keep your legs moving when you get hit, because at that point you have the opportunity to fall forward or fall to the side, but you never go backwards as long as you keep your legs moving. And I took that literally. Always keep your legs moving. The second thing I would say is always be yourself. Like, there's nobody that can be you better than you. And while you may see other people that you think have cool things or have cool personality traits, that's not your thing. So always do your thing, because your thing is the thing that will get you to where you need to be. And last but not least, smile. There's a difference between living and existing. Andre 2000 taught me that. He said, do you want to live or do you want to exist? If you're living a life and you're not smiling every single day, if you're not laughing every single day, you're just existing. And so don't be so tough all the time. I get it. You got to be hard. You got to live this existence in this world that you feel like is always against you, but the reality of it is that you can always find a reason and a time to smile. So make sure you do it as often as possible. And also it's good for your health and it lowers your blood pressure, I think. So make sure you smile. That's the three things.
That is I've asked that question probably 50 times on this show. And that may have been one of the best answers that I've actually heard. And I appreciate you saying that, because those are three areas and three tips that people can do on a daily basis, on a daily basis. You know, one of my good friends, George Achampong, he always talks about a champion's checklist. Things that you should be doing every single day that could be pushing the needle forward on the goal that you actually have at the mountaintop. You know, if you want to be more fit, or if you want to lose 20 pounds, then if you commit to working out 15 to 20 minutes on a daily basis, even if it's walking, running, just push-up, squats, then it will help you eventually get to that goal. If you want to save more money, then if you save $1 a day over the next, period of time, it will help you do that. And I think oftentimes we think we have to do so much today. Rather, we could just break it up over a period of time. And that's how we get to the point where we're successful on being willing to commit to the process. And your process and what you shared today is powerful. And I'm so excited, so thankful that I've had the privilege of knowing you and experiencing life with you in so many different seasons. And I'm super excited for your book, for your screenwriting, and not just those materialistic things, but your purpose to be poured into the world so that you can transform the people that God has called for you to transform. So, Chad, we appreciate you. We thank you. Anybody listening right now, Chad, where can they find you?
Well, I'm starting my podcast. Actually, it keeps getting pushed back, but it'll actually happen this month. Finally, it's called the Parlay Podcast. You should be able to find that on all streaming platforms by the end of April 2023. Depends on when you listen to this. And yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Call Me Parlay. The Parlay Podcast actually has a Facebook page as well, and you can see me on there. I'll probably have updated photos by then because I've lost weight since those photos. But yeah, I'm also on Facebook as Chad Anthony. You can find me there. I'm usually having something funny up, or I will have written something, regarding something going on in society that I find interesting. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
I love it, man. I love it. Guys, we thank you again for listening to another episode of the Writers Game Podcast. Like, share, subscribe to the channel where we help you magnify voices and monetize message. We will see you guys on the next episode.